Hey, welcome to Storytime with PJ. I've got a great story for you today, all about David. And you know what? In the next couple weeks, we're going to start to read some Christmas stories. But for today, I want to read to you about David. David and God's giant victory. Let's see what it says. This is an I Can Read book. So this is one that you could read yourselves. But I'm going to read it to you today. Sometimes it's nice to have a story read to you, isn't it? A long time ago, the Israelite army and the Philistine army were ready to fight. There was a very big man in the Philistine army. His name was Goliath. Goliath was 9 feet tall. He was very, very strong. The Israelite army was filled with fear. I think they were shaking in their boots. David's brothers were in the Israelite army. Their father Jesse told David to bring them some food. David went to check on his brothers too. David brought food to his brothers. He heard Goliath dare the Israelites to send a man to fight with him. Goliath shouted, "Choose one of your men to face me." And nobody stepped forward. The Israelite army was scared. I'm not surprised. He was so big, 9 feet tall. But David wasn't scared. He trusted God to keep him safe. "Who does Goliath think he is?" asked David. Saul, the Israelite king, heard about David. He was surprised by what he heard. Look, there's Saul peeking out of his tent. "Let me go fight Goliath," David said to King Saul. The king said, "David, you're too small. You can't fight that giant." But David knew that God would help keep him safe. He fought a lion and he fought a bear to protect his father's sheep. David trusted God to help him. "Well," said Saul, "go and fight the giant, and God be with you," King Saul said to David. And then he gave David his armor, his helmet, and a sword. But everything was too big for David to use. David took the armor off. He left Saul's sword on the ground. He knew he could win the fight with Goliath. David had a plan. Wonder what his plan is. David trusted God to keep him safe. He prayed to God for strength. Then David took his slingshot and he went to a stream. Any of you guys have a slingshot? David looked around the stream. He chose 5 smooth stones for his slingshot. He put them in his shepherd's bag. David was ready. He only had 5 stones in a slingshot. Look at him. There he goes. David approached the giant man named Goliath. He wasn't scared at all. He really trusted God, didn't he? Even when Goliath looked at him with anger, David wasn't afraid. Goliath saw that. David was young and small. He was surprised that this boy would try and fight him. David said, "Today the world will know that there's a great God in Israel." He got his slingshot and his stones ready. David whirled it and twirled it, and Goliath watched and wasn't happy. Whoosh! David slung the stone at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath on the head, and Goliath fell down. David didn't need a sword or a spear or the armor. David only needed God's help. David won the battle against Goliath. David was right. The battle belonged to the Lord. He struck Goliath down with just a slingshot and a stone. And, of course, God's great love. Isn't that an awesome one? Isn't that great? All right, you join me next week for Storytime with PJ.